Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Before we begin our council meetings, we acknowledge that we're in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples in the Huron-Robinson Treaties areas. We recognize the long history of First Nations and Métis peoples on this land, and we show respect to them today. We acknowledge our neighbors, the Wada Mohawks and the First Nations of Moose Deer, Shawniga, Wasauksing, Magnetawan, Hendley Inlet, Nipissing, and Dokis. We are learning from our First Nation partners of the Wasauksing First Nation to accept the responsibility to take care of Mother Earth, her plants, her animals, and our shared peoples. We look to each other's and the elders of both nations as a source of inspiration, guidance, and the living memory of our communities. We, like all peoples, must accept that we are stewards of creation and that the land comes to us with a responsibility where no hierarchy exists. All life is sacred on earth, in the waters, and in the skies. As settlers, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all of the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. So I'll call this meeting to order and ask for an approval to the agenda. There was an addendum with a few changes. Everybody's okay with that? All in favor? The agenda is approved. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? I see none. So we move on to the minutes. Let me get the water out of the way. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular and closed session meetings of council held on May 13th, 2024 as circulated. Could I have a motion? Ted and Mario? All in favor? Thank you. And I just want to acknowledge that we have Councillor Finson is joining us online on Zoom. Welcome. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matters. Consent application number B 2024-0005-H for Tate. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0021-H for Ontario Corporation 1587208 Inc. for Nessman, and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0026-H and consent application number B 2023-0026-H for Rosso Springs Limited. Could I have a mover? Greg and Ken. All in favor? And that's carried, and we move into the public meeting. Council will now hold public meetings for proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent or passing a zoning bylaw. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the passing of a zoning bylaw amendment and who has not submitted such a request in writing should send a written request, including your full name, address, and the application title to the clerk. No one other than the prescribed persons may appeal an application under the provisions of the Planning Act. If they do not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin prior to the decision of Council, then the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. The purpose of consent application number B 2024-0005-H for Tate is to create one new rural residential lot with frontage on Walters Lane. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which the notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting on the property on May 9th, 2024, posting on the Township of Seguin's website, and by regular mail on May 16th, 2024. Notice was therefore considered provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Is there anyone present in person in the council chambers who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? No? Has anyone registered to speak to this application via electronic participation?
No one has registered to speak to this application by electronic participation.
Does council have any questions on this? And I see Brady if we have any questions. No questions? Thank you. So we move on. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0021-H 1587208 Ontario Inc. for Nessman is to rezone the lands from an open space exception zone to a rural residential exception zone and EP zone. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which the notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property on April 23rd, 2024, posting on the Township of Seguin's website and by regular mail on April 22nd, 2024. Notice was therefore considered to provide in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to this application?
No correspondence has been received.
Is there anyone present in person in the council chambers who wishes to speak in favor of or against this? None. Has anyone registered to speak to this application by electronic participation?
John Jackson, agent for the applicant, had registered to speak to this application via electronic participation. And Mr. Jackson is not in the waiting room, so we'll assume he's not.
Does council have any questions on this one? No, okay, thank you. Oh, okay. We're going to take a pause to let people in from the waiting room for the next consent application. Okay, before we proceed, I do want to remind everybody what we are doing here is a public meeting. We are listening to comments only. There are no decisions going to be made on this in any way today. It'll come back at a later date. If you're online, there's John Jackson. I don't think we need to go back, do we? I do want to I would like anybody who's online to turn off any version of YouTube watching this council meeting, or we will have feedback. So if you're online, please make sure that you're only on Zoom. So the purpose of consent application number B 2023-0026-H for Rosso Springs Limited is to sever a waterfront lot from a back lot. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0026-H for Rosso Springs Limited is to rezone lands from environmental protection to shoreline residential and also rezone lands zoned rural to environmental protection. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which the notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property, posting on the Township of Seguin's website and by regular mail on May 3rd, 2024. Notice was therefore considered to provide in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to these applications?
Correspondence has been received from several persons and associations has been included in the agenda package.
Is there anyone present in person in the council chambers that wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition to these applications? I'm going to ask that we go row by row and one by one. So if you don't mind, that's how we'll do it. I saw many hands go up. So I think gentleman in the front. Who is the planning? Okay, Mr. Lloyd, could you identify yourself, give your address? And this I'd like, because there's so many people wanting to present, I would hope that everyone will keep their presentation short and not repeat anything that they've heard before. So, Mr. Lloyd, you have the floor.
Thank you, mayors and member of council, senior staff and residents. My name's Leo Deloyd. I'm at 419 Surrey Drive in North Bay. I'm the planning consultant for the applicant, these two applications. And we reviewed the report, and we do have a brief PowerPoint, 6 slides, if that would help get the meeting started. I'll leave it to your discretion, but I'd happy to share that.
Sure, go ahead. You can share your screen. Okay, we can see your screen now.
Okay. So the proposed residential rezoning and severance is by Rosso Springs Limited. And the address is on Maplehurst Road. And you mentioned the files. I just want to mention who the partners are in Rosso Ridge, if I may. Holden Rhodes, Rem Steele, Matt Taylor, Mr. Fleischman, Mr. Inch, all partners are intimately connected with the area. The partnership group is local. Rem and Matt own the local infrastructure firm, Canosa Bay, and Holden owns Killarney Mountain Lodge and Sportsman Inn in Ontario, and he has a cottage in the area. In terms of the location of the site, it's located on the south limit of Cameron Bay, as you can see in the drawing. The proposed lot is bisected by an access road. It's not a right-of-way, it's an easement. So it's what we're proposing is an expanded house site. The municipal board had already approved a house on this site some time ago, as set out in the planning report. The site slopes from south to north, and the application is really for creation of a 4.8 hectare lot. The idea is an environment first design consistent with the policies of the Seguin official plan. There is a sensitive hardwood wetland in the area, and this application is intended to protect those. And so this is really a revision to the originally rezoned lands based on ecological studies. And we do have with us today our ecologist. There's special zoning setbacks to protect the water course, and the proposed lot and residential development will be consistent with that in the established area. This is a little bit complicated. It's set out in the report, but basically we're looking at adjusting the EP line, environmental protection, and RU to SR1 to allow additional flexibility in terms of the location of the house setting, subject to the usual Seguin Township policies and zoning regs. And then the other thing that we're doing, if you can see my cursor, so this is the original, where the cursor is going, is the original SR1 approved by the municipal board. And then we're looking at having this area, the former farm area, allowed for house siting or accessory buildings. And then we're looking at rezoning the balance of the land from RU, which I don't think is the right zoning, to EP, because that's definitely a hardwood wetland. And we've done all kinds of studies, hydrogeological, natural heritage. The reports that we prepared by FRI Corp have been peer reviewed by Seguin's planner, ecologist, and stormwater studies, geotechnical, archaeological, and traffic impact studies have been completed. So the long and the short of it is that the planning analysis conforms with the Township of Seguin official plan policies and provincial policy statements. We've justified everything, and it's in your report in terms of the house siting and from an ecological standpoint, and at all times protecting the most important, all the important environmental features. And as I mentioned, the owner is prepared to rezone gratuitously part of the property from RU to EP to guarantee that environmental approach. So having said that, we're open for questions and comments. Thank you.
Does council have any questions? Do you want to speak as well now as a follow-up to him? Well, what I'd like to ask you to go to the podium and push the little light so that the green light goes on, and then identify yourself and your address.
Sure. I'm Holden Rhodes.
Yeah, and would you mind stop sharing your screen so the others that are online can see? Thank you very much for your presentation. Great, thank you. Okay,
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'm Holden Rhodes. My local address is 29 Old Post Road, but live primarily in London. Been coming up to Muskoka for about 25 years. We purchased our cottage/home here in 2012. So been here for 12 years permanently, or not permanently, but on a more frequent basis. And just wanted to reiterate what I put in my letter on Friday, which is we purchased this property as an opportunity to do a development that is helpful for the community in terms of housing. We all know that there's a housing, some call it a shortage, some call it a crisis, but certainly there is a shortage of housing. I've seen other developments in Muskoka, and I think there's lessons to be learned from those developments. And we wanted to do a nicer development. So that's part of the larger package, which is not before council right now, but it seems to be intermingled by some of the questions and concerns that have been raised in relation to this application. This application is simply asking for a consent to sever a portion of the larger parcel, which is 285 acres. And in relation to the rezoning component, just to be clear on what is the ask on the amount of rezoning. So currently the property is 61% rural residential and 25% environmental protection and 6% short SR1. We're looking to move from 6% to 10% on the SR1. In exchange for that, we're going to gratuitously agree to rezone the residential component from RR to EP, and that's moving it from 25% to 61%. So we're actually increasing the environmental protection on the property substantially.
Thank
And
you.
That's all I have to offer.
I see a question from Councillor Finson for either yourself or Mr. Leal.
My question is just on what you mentioned about the development that you're ready to develop, because we need housing in Seguin, right?
Yes.
The question is, the housing that you're going to build, is it resort cottage housing or is it residential attainable housing? Just curious. And there was a question about the first thing as well. I just asked that because he brought it up.
Yeah. So again, that application will come before council later this year. It's not part of this application, but the intention is to have it as single family residential homes.
Okay, but it is not in the settlement area. It's not anyway. Okay, I'll leave that till the next time. My question about the EP property, it appears to me that you would like to take a property that's been zoned EP for over 60 years. How it becomes not environmentally protected, I don't know. And just give us another piece to satisfy us. I don't understand that logic. You're saying, oh, well, we're going to give you more just because we want that piece on the lake. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's to recognize what is factually correct in terms of the biology and the ecology of the area. And so that is in the environmental report in terms of the assessment of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some people that have the different opinions. But anyway, thank you. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Does council have any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that was row 1. Is there anybody in row 2 who wants to speak? Row 2? Nope. Row 3. Okay, come on up to the microphone and make sure the green light is on, and identify yourself and your address. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor McDermott, councillors and staff. My name is Carla Brewer. My cottage is at 11 Maplehurst Road. It is a property that is very close, in close proximity to the applicant's property. So I'm here in that capacity. I'm also here in the capacity of being a board member with the Lake Rosso North Association. I've been coming to Muskoka for over 40 years, and we've owned the cottage for about 20. I'm also a lawyer. The Lake Rosso North Association has previously submitted a letter outlining some of our concerns to the township and the councillors, and I thank you for reviewing our letter. Clean hands. Clean hands is a fundamental tenet of law in all legal proceedings. All parties must come to the table with clean hands. In this case, the applicant has not come with clean hands. There has been a lack of transparency and a lack of adequate and fair disclosure by the applicant. It is important that in complex community issues, there is required community collaboration. The applicant has failed to do this. The Lake Rosso North Association had asked several times for the applicant's environmental report that had been referred to in their application and in the peer review. Friday afternoon, the Lake Rosso North Association finally received the environmental report from the applicant. One business day prior to this meeting is not an adequate amount of time to review and assess this document and any other environmental documents that have not been shared, and to have meaningful consultation with all affected parties. We are in agreement with Mayor McDermott that no decision is to be made today, as it would be premature at this point for council to make any final determinations. Lastly, we are all stewards of this beautiful ecosystem. We must err on the side of caution and not make decisions that will negatively affect our future generations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Carla. Anybody else in row 3? I'm sorry, I have no other way to do it but where you are. Hi, Terry.
So my name's Terry McGurk. I'm at 22 Rossmoyne Road. So my property is at the mouth of Cameron Bay. And I am co-president of the Lake Rosso North Association. And when we first heard about this notice of this meeting, we reached out to our neighbors and cottagers in the bay and decided on a course of action. When we spoke with some of our experts, they thought the most important piece of rezoning is to get an opinion from a local planner. So I contacted Plan Muskoka, and Savis, I think you've met him before. He's been here. I see his name on a lot of dockets. He reviewed what he had access to, and he didn't really have to talk much about any of the things in the reports. He really looked at it from a very technical standpoint, and you all have hopefully seen his letter. Copies were forwarded. And I just wanted to highlight 3 things that I found of interest that I think we should really all think about. In Schedule C of the Township of, sorry, I am so nervous. My voice is.
We don't bite, don't worry, relax.
It's so cold in here. Thank God I brought a jacket. Okay, so those are my 2 complaints. All right, I'm good. So Schedule C of the Seguin official plan indicates that the subject property fronts onto a narrow water body, and that's in section D8. New development in narrow water bodies shall be subject to site plan control. New shoreline structure development shall be subject to the preparation of a site evaluation report to identify the location of development on the property in a manner that will minimize the risk to navigation safely and, more importantly, environmental features to the satisfaction of the township. It's noted that no analysis of the narrow water body policy appears to have been included in the supporting materials. So that's number one. Number two is the floodplain policies. And the official plan indicates that the subject lands are designated rural and resource area and environmental protection. The assessment appears to be on the basis that and the assumption that the EP designation zone was applied to protect wetland areas and fish habitat. However, it is important to note that the EP land use designation is also used to delineate flood hazard lands in the official plan. Areas of known and or mapped floodplains have been designated as environmental protection area on the schedules to this plan. It is the intention of this plan that no development shall occur on these lands that are subject to flooding. The extent and the exact location of the boundaries of these floodplain areas shall be delineated in the implementing zoning bylaw or through development applications. Also, the EP status, so what I kind of took from this is the EP status we're all assuming was potentially for fish habitat. And I've lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I got to calm down here. For the fish habitat and the wetlands. It's entirely possible that it was designated EP because it's a floodplain. That's what I got from that. And my third point is the provincial policy statement, the PPS, is the most relevant policy statement with which the proposal must be consistent for the decision to be made to approve and consent zoning bylaw amendment. The zoning bylaw schedule appears to demonstrate that a large portion of the land proposed to be rezoned from EP to SR1 is below the flood elevation implemented in the zoning bylaw. So the basis of this deferral, which we're doing today, is we feel what also needs to be added is that the applicant has time to demonstrate that the land proposed to be rezoned from EP to SR1 is outside of the floodway. As it stands right now, the shoreline has been altered. A lot of brush has been cleared, and the wetland is actually seeping in a lot to the SR1 proposed extension area. So if you were to walk the property or come in by boat, Lake Rosso is seeping significantly into this this EP zone. It's flooded right now, and we're not at the same high water marks that we were in March. We're June 1st, June 3rd now. Water's come down significantly. It's completely flooded. And it's a swamp. And I don't know what has to be done to alter this property or this land to build on it, but it certainly isn't protecting the environment. And I think I'm done.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions, Ms. Kirk? Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else in row 3? Okay, come on up to the microphone, make sure the little green light's on, and identify yourself.
Absolutely. So my name is Michael Green, and I'm a resident at 21B Maplehurst Road, which is fairly adjacent to the intended property. And, you know, certainly this is a quiet little bay with this environmental area at the bottom of it. And there's an awful lot of different kind of creatures living there and everything. And I think it is on top of this kind of wetland area, and would be a really kind of nasty, swampy area, I think, for anyone to actually live on. I think a major concern on top of that really is the fact that, during the winter, and particularly in the spring, we get a lot of flooding coming down there. There's a lot of water coming down the hill from across the highway, running into the lake there. You can hear the torrents at the beginning of the year. And the driveway that we have, which has the easement on it, is frequently flooded out. So I think any further kind of alteration to that, I think we'd be really concerned that it's going to increase the flooding risk, as well as kind of, you know, really damaging the natural environment. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, come on forward.
Oh, there we are. Sorry about that. This is my first time here. My name is Julie Battersby, and my summer address is 50 Summit Drive, which is just around the corner from this proposed application on Cameron Bay. My father bought the property in 1958 and built the cottage with his own two hands on it shortly thereafter. I have been coming up here all of my life. I have submitted a written letter, which I hope all of you have. I am not going to repeat what is in it, but I did want to address one other additional point that does cause me some concern. To start with, I just wanted to, and I'm sure you're all aware, obviously, to remind Council and Madam Mayor of the Seguin Township Strategic Plan to 2026 and beyond. At page 3 of that plan, the statement by the mayor is that Seguin's greatest asset continues to be our natural environment. It goes on to say Seguin's new strategic plan commits that as we work towards our broad priorities to lead, grow, and connect, we must always build off our first organizational foundation to put the environment first. And at page 6 of that document, under Seguin Foundations, the primary foundation is to prioritize the environment, protect, preserve, and invest in our natural environment. This, in my submission, is the starting point of any application to rezone from EP to something less than EP. I wanted to address just one really point with respect to the application that is before you, and that is the proposed setbacks from the lake, wetland, and watercourse bordering the severed lot. The original Frycore, well, not the original report, the revised, the February 2024 Frycore, and I apologize if that's not how the company's referred to, Frycore report acknowledges at page 18 of 31 of that report that Lake Rosso is a confirmed diverse fish community with cold, cool, and warm water fish species. And further, that the watercourse on the property that was assessed in 2021, and it was assessed several bait fish, they say pearl dace, were captured in a minnow trap. That watercourse is confirmed direct fish habitat. And contrary, sorry, my looking up pearl dace indicates that they are cool or cold water fish. Contrary to Frycore's statement in page 8 of their February 6th letter that responds to the Riverstone peer report, contrary to their comment that the 5-meter setback from the watercourse meets the natural heritage considerations for fish habitat, in my submission, that is not accurate. According to the National Heritage Reference Manual, which Riverstone cites in their March 22nd, 2024 peer review, the recommended minimum natural vegetated coverage adjacent to fish habitat is 30 meters. Frycore and Rosso Springs is proposing a 20-meter setback from the lake. That's a 1/3 encroachment on the recommended 30 meters. And they are recommending proposing a 5-meter setback on the water course. And that is a more than 80% encroachment into the 30-meter recommended setback area. The National Heritage Reference Manual does state that where policy 2.1.6, and I'll let you guys sort that out, is satisfied, that a 20-meter setback may be recommended for cool water streams or a 15-meter setback from warm water streams. If this water course is indeed a cool water stream that is suggested by the presence of the pearl dace that they caught, then that would support a minimum 20-meter setback from that water course. In nowhere, Riverstone recommends the 15-meter setback. Nowhere is there any justification or support for a 5-meter setback that is being proposed by Frycore. Rather, the National Heritage Reference Manual says that planning authorities may consider greater distances, not lesser distances. So just to summarize that, the Rosso Springs and Frycore are suggesting a 5-meter setback from the water course. Riverstone is recommending a 15-meter setback from the water course. And my reading of the Natural Heritage Reference Manual recommends between a 20 and 30-meter setback. Only by significantly encroaching on the recommended setbacks, which is 20 meters from the lake or 5 meters from the water course, are Frycore and Rosso Springs able to create a parcel of developable land that meets the Seguin Township requirement of 0.4 hectares. If council adheres to the National Heritage Reference Manual recommendations, then the minimum setbacks do not appear to allow for any developable parcel of land, and in which case, I wonder why we're here today. Mayor, members of council, you're familiar with the phrase that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, in this case, I would suggest that attending personally at the site and seeing what this land actually looks like would be actually priceless. There is a reason why there are so many reasons why there are so many people that are here present that have submitted orally or written submissions, and are passionate about the land which is in question. In order to make a decision, and I know you're not making a decision today, and that's being, at least I believe it's being deferred, but whenever that decision is made, I hope it is made with complete information, that all the material that is available and references this application and will inform this application is reviewed. And when it has been reviewed and when you're familiar with all of the information available, my submission is that there is only one response to this application that fulfills the township's strategic plan to put the environment first. And I urge you to do that. When you do make a decision, I urge you to fulfill the primary Seguin Foundation to prioritize the environment, to protect, preserve, and invest in our natural environment by rejecting this application. Thank you.
Does council have any questions? No? Row 4. Is there anybody in row 4 that has something different to add? Please proceed to the microphone and just double check that the bright green light is on.
Good afternoon. Sorry.
Can you identify yourselves and your addresses, please?
Yes, I'm Claudia Zuccarini. I'm at 48 Summit Drive, 6 properties away from the development property. Am I able to hand this out to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And my name is Art Hale, and our cottage is right beside Claudia at 50 Summit Drive. Well, Claudia's handing that out. I just wanted to show you my hat. It says Seguin Township, the natural place to be. I'm very proud of this hat. Good afternoon. Mayor, councilors, Seguin staff, thank you. Thank you for looking after Seguin for all of us who live here. Our family has been on Cameron Bay for 66 years, as Julie mentioned. 4 generations of us. Our 92-year-old father-in-law would be here today. He is here in spirit, but he's a little less mobile these days. Many other neighbors and concerned Seguin residents are here, and many are online. Cameron Bay is home to many cottages and year-round residences. For us, we canoe or kayak, a couple of cottages, turn left, go into the end of Cameron Bay. What we see, 3 cottages up high here, 3 cottages up high there, and at the end is bush. Bush you can't get through because it's so thick, and it's been that way forever. And then you picture this, you're in your kayak going down there, and a doe and fawn having a drink there. You can't see the roads from the bay, and you can't see the bay from the roads. There's a small creek in the middle, and it's equally thick bush on both sides. We go around the corner this spring, the right side is gone. It's open. It's been demolished. The bush is all gone from the shoreline. Many trees are gone. Many of those trees measure at the base 8 to 10 inches. So unlikely they shrink to 6 inches at 4 feet, but bylaw officers are looking into that. I don't believe they're finished yet. There are 2 culverts underneath Maplehurst Road. One of them used to empty onto the land directly, the wetland, to absorb that runoff before it went into the lake. Recently, there's been ditching done there to direct that water directly into the lake. We have pictures of that as well. The subject property is very low, very wet, lower than the roads to the west and the south, lower than the hill to the east, and only a few inches above the lake. High water levels have been already mentioned. I won't repeat that. So it's going to underline the wet and wetland in the spring. This property has done its job for many, many years, more than 66 at the least. Wetlands absorbing all the surrounding runoff, protecting the lake. Any development turns soft and wetlands, absorbing lands, into hard and dry lands where there's more runoff into the lake. Rosser Springs' byline and slogan is environment first, environment friendly. Why then would their very first actions be so environment unfriendly? That does not bode well for the future. I believe it would now be looked on very favorably if Rosser Springs were to donate this subject land to a conservancy to be forever protected. That is what an environment first company would do. The rezoning proposal should be withdrawn or rejected.
So in referencing to this document that I just shared with you, if you turn to page 2, you'll see the map that was provided by Frycourt. Now outlined in red is the entire property. And you'll see in green, the tiny property that is the subject of this amendment. If you turn to the next page, on page 3, this is just so we're all clear and we're literally on the same page. You will see that the bright green, not the, the very bright green on the left is what is being applied for the EP zone to go to the SR zone, SR1 zone. So as long as we all understand that that very highlighted green is what's being proposed by Russell Springs. And right now that bright green is currently EP, right? So that's hence the application. You'll notice as well the culvert that that Art was talking about in the next on the next page, on page 4, between the 2 red lines, and again outlining the zoning from EP to SR. You'll note in this diagram, however, that there's a green dotted line that actually is EP zoned that extends into the lake. It goes further than just the shoreline. The EP zone goes way deep into the lake. You can ignore page 5 for now. So behind here, so the next page, page 6, are just some photographs that we had taken, showing some of the trees that were cut that are 9 inches, you'll see 11 inches, 8 inches. There was a bonfire at some point that was used to burn everything that was cut. Page number 8 will give you a better understanding of the decimation that has occurred. You'll see right at the water line on the first picture to the left. To the right of that is a trench that was dug by machinery, I assume. I don't know. I'm not up to speed on how one does that. And that is to drain that water into the lake. Like there's a trench there that was dug on purpose with intention to divert the water. Unacceptable. You'll notice on the bottom part of that page to the left is just a bunch of shrubs, tiny little shrubs. This is EP zone. This is the reparation zone. I was under the understanding that anything in the EP zone is not allowed to be cut. There has been hundreds. The next picture you'll see a swamp, which is pretty typical of what is here. The last picture, the next picture on page number 9, again, you'll see the culvert at the bottom. Now that culvert is at the very, very top. Is it north?
Yeah.
The north end. And that ditch goes all the way to the south end through the EP zone, starts in the SR1 zone, goes through the EP zone and into the water. Now, the last picture you'll see, you'll notice it almost looks like a picture that's been cut in half. To the right, you'll see the trees. You'll see through the trees. I'm sorry, you'll see through the trees. To the left, you can't see through the trees. That's all bush. That's the way it was right across. When you're on Maplehurst, you could not see through the trees so that you could see the lake. When you're on the lake, you could not see the tree. You cannot see through the trees and see Maplehurst. Now you can see right through, only on the portion. If you notice in the half part here, only on the portion that is looking to be rezoned. Only on that portion. This is unacceptable. I oppose this. And I think it's absolutely, absolutely terrible to do this to what is our piece of heaven. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to present some new information? Do you want to proceed to the podium and identify yourself?
Hi, my name is Sandra Morris. I'm actually not a resident of Seguin. I live at 8 Stephen Road in Port Carling. But I wanted to appear today. I only learned about this meeting late yesterday. I'd like to underline that I think actually decisions made even here have not only local effects, but broader regional effects that all of us care about. So I don't have a lot of information on which to base my remarks, but I'd like to say a couple of things. I've heard today, it sounds as though there may already have been some site changes affected by an applicant who is, and I think that is a deeply concerning procedural issue that I hope council will give some attention to. The other thing I guess I would like to flag is that, as I think you all know, we are at an inflection point. We have seen changing weather patterns. We know that we are at a critical point when we think about our environment and what impacts its health and well-being is going to have on us all. Wetlands in particular are especially important. As I hope council is aware, they filter water, they retain water, they store carbon, they are connected to headwaters in important ways. They house endangered species, they play many important functions. 20 years ago, it was estimated that conservatively, that nationally they were providing ecological services of something like 20 billion. That estimate now, 20 years later, nationally is more than 100 times that. So I think care and caution needs to be taken when thinking about undermining those really important natural features. But I guess what I wanted to say in an overarching way without having details of this particular proposal is it feels to me really unfortunate at a moment in time when we need to be taking more protective action with respect to the environment, to be contemplating a proposal that would reduce the zoning, environmental protection zoning of a property and engage in some kind of horse trading. If the applicant has identified some part of the property that should be zoned EP as well, that's great, but it would be a really unfortunate step, I think, for council to reduce the amount of land in EP zoning at this moment in time. And as a citizen of Muskoka who's concerned about the broader environment and the implications of decisions across the region, I respectfully urge you to reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Well, thank you all for coming and for making your points. Oh,
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I do wish to speak if possible.
who is it? Oh, okay. We're still just discussing who's in council. We'll get to the two people that are on screen in a moment.
Thank you.
So, Craig, do you want to recognize them?
So
Okay, so, do we have them all online? Leo Deloitte? Okay, he's spoken. Julie Battersby spoken.
So maybe what I'll do, Mayor, I'll go through our list and I'll look for people who haven't spoken and are in there for us. Stuart Clinton.
Is Mr. Clinton online? Steve Gray?
He was there a second ago.
I'm here.
Okay. That's who spoke, isn't it? Okay.
Does he have anything to say or no?
Do you have a presentation?
Yes, I do. And I see Cheryl Lewis was on briefly a moment ago. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, we'll take you in the order in which you're listed on our agenda. So Mr. Gray, can you identify yourself and your address?
Yes, Mayor, Council, and participants, I'm Steve Gray from 1923 Valley View Place, Victoria, BC. My family and I were cottagers at 15 Maplehurst Road for 65 years, going back to 1955. Our former cottage lot is immediately adjacent the subject land, and my childhood experiences in Cameron Bay had such an impact on me that I wanted to be a biologist. So I worked for 44 years as a professional biologist, doing things such as fish population studies, sensitive area studies, plant collecting, environmental studies for housing developments, a cottage development, a hydroelectric project. I worked as a plant ecologist for an environmental consulting firm, and I was a regional park planner for the Ontario government. I retired in 2016 from those and other jobs. I'd like to give some reasons why I object to the wetland area being developed. I think the environmental protections should actually be strengthened and not modified to allow this development. So let me go through my points. There's the land suitable for cottages is pretty well dried up. It's a very scarce commodity. All that's left are the most difficult lands to develop or the most protected lands. The wetlands were wisely set aside by earlier councillors decades ago. Today's councillors should not overturn decades of precedent and compromise this environmental integrity. Wetlands are a huge contrast to the species poor typical forests that would say have 20 species. And the wetlands have 10 times the diversity, maybe 200 or more species, and a wider range of flora and fauna. The wetlands even include some threatened and rare species. The shallow waters serve as a nursery and breeding ground for amphibians, fish, and so up the food chain to birds and mammals. Councillors, please note, these wetlands invigorate a large portion of the lake. The wetlands currently only have municipal protection. It's time to consider some provincial level protection, such as a nature reserve park. The Muskoka Conservancy would have very strong interest in this wetlands. The council will not want to cut short future preservation options. The fish population studies need to be done in Lake Rosso, especially fish spawning in this southwest Cameron Bay. It's been 13 years since the Ontario government did a survey on Lake Rosso. I'm sure the two local associations would be very supportive. So in addition to doing nets and traps, researchers can now sample the water for what's called environmental DNA, eDNA, to reveal the presence of all species, reptiles, amphibians, fish, and mammals. The council needs to have the full story on what fish are spawning in this bay, their contribution to the lake's fish stock, and what other species are there. So I heard decades ago that this creek was an important pickerel spawning area. And I attribute the near disappearance of pickerel in the 60s and 70s to a net fishing incident that I heard of. It took the pickerel population some 20 to 30 years to recover. So councillors, please note, if this cottage development causes a major disruption to pickerel spawning and growth, it could be a permanent setback for the lake's pickerel. So I'm thinking fisheries groups and outdoor writers in the Muskoka area, Parry Sound area, are likely to be very interested in whether these wetlands are going to be developed, because Lake Rosso is widely appreciated for its sports fishing. So expect a significant public outcry and criticism if these are involved. The soils in the Creek Valley are largely clays. So most properties in the area are built on rock and till. Foundations are not an issue, but the clays in southwest Cameron Bay will cause a lot of grief. Our cottage experienced an annual lifting and falling from the frost heaving. And I know a nearby cottage that had its foundations crack. So there will be extra troubles for development. So having a significantly different soil type is another reason why these wetlands and the creek valley are distinct and should be protected. I understand Russell Springs was characterizing part of the lands as abandoned agricultural lands. My personal experience is these were likely abandoned in the 40s, because I remember seeing them in, say, 1956, and they were already wild at that point. The fields have gone through about 80 years of natural succession and have become a treed meadow. So just want to make the point that it's no longer agricultural land. The other problem with the silt is that it causes heavy silt deposits in the creek. And there was a cottager that allowed the land to be harvested. And there was, for 3 or 4 years after that, there's a very heavy silt load. So a lot of the delta at the mouth of the creek is from that incident. So if the development continues, we're disturbing the silt further upstream, removing aquatic plants, releasing septic and petroleum pollutants. There'll be consequences. The council should be very wary of opening up such valuable wetlands to damage. So that concludes my presentation. I just would summarize: do not allow this wetland to be compromised. Thank you for letting me have my input.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gray. Is on. Cheryl Lewis, are you there?
Hi there. I'm actually Armis Vorlewis. I'm Cheryl Lewis's child. She was meaning to speak today, but had to be pulled away by a family medical emergency. But I am prepared to speak today on all of the same things that she was planning to speak on.
Okay, could you just identify your first name and your address that you're representing, and make sure that the information you're sharing is new information and not having been shared already?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Armis, A-R-M-A-S, Vorlewis, V-O-O-R-E-Lewis. My father's family has had the cottage at 21C Maplehurst since the 1950s. I have grown up in this area at this cottage that is only 3 cottages away from the lands looking to be rezoned. Having grown up here, I learned so much about the ecosystem and about caring about the environment because of what I saw in that swamp. I grew up swimming there and kayaking there, and we've seen so many different animals there over the years. As children, we would hunt around for frogs and toads, and there would be all sorts of different bugs and insects. And in previous years, we've seen huge amounts of wildlife. There's a great blue heron that we assume nests there, as it is there every day, or at least has been in the last several years. We see deer, and we've seen bear there, and we've seen mink and otters, and just a huge array of different things, and bats. And this ecosystem is so vital to the surrounding area, and it truly is a very unique ecosystem. This swamp at the end of Cairn Bay is almost a bay within a bay, and it's just such a small, secluded area of the lake, and it's become such a protected environment, and it's just absolutely teeming with life. And to disrupt that would be truly to take away from just so many species who live there. And many of these species, we think, return year after year, either the same individual of a species or their children. As I said, we think a great blue heron nests there. And we've also frequently seen snapping turtles. And even last year, we brought a snapping turtle egg that had been, we believe, dislodged from a nest in that swamp and had sort of been buffeted around. And we brought it to a turtle rescue center. So there are certainly snapping turtles in that swamp. And this area is just so important to the people who live around it. it has throughout my life been vital. Sorry. It's been vital to my emotional and physical and spiritual well-being. Sorry, I don't mean to get emotional. It's taught me so much. Sorry, I am not great at public speaking. It's taught me so much about the environment and about the importance of the environment. And I've grown into someone who truly loves nature and everything that it has to offer. Sorry. And finally, I also just wanted to highlight a few things about the report that was put forward. The Freikorp report really focuses on whether or not it's a wetland and seems to think that that's the only important thing that could possibly be going on in this land. And it's a far more complex ecosystem than that. There are absolutely, it is a wetland, but there is also species that use the forest for cover, and of course, fish spawning and frog spawning in the water. And also, the report seems to question whether it's a wetland at all, based on the fact that they don't seem to believe that there are snapping turtles there, but we have seen them firsthand. There is also in that swamp, even in the area that they have begun to clear things before this hearing has been held, which seems unacceptable. My mother went to look at sort of what had happened just a few days ago, and she found in that area of the swamp, swamp lilies. Their scientific name is Calla palustris, and palustris actually means bog loving. They are a wetland obligate species, meaning that they can only grow on wetland. So that sort of in and of itself is sort of just proof of the fact that this is wetland, and it is sensitive wetland. And it is going beyond it being a wetland. The forest sort of just back from the water itself is in itself sort of a nature reserve for animals. Just today, me and my mother meant to attend this meeting in person, but we had a family emergency. As we were leaving our cottage at 21C, as we were driving past, there was a deer on the property that is being looked at to be rezoned, eating, and it stayed there for a very long time. And it's a refuge for the animals from all around. And it would be an incredible shame to lose that. And I personally, I don't hope to speak out of turn here, but as someone who I think I'm likely the youngest person at this meeting today, I am a young person in which the future of our environment is very, very uncertain. And, you know, in the past few years, the experience of coming to the cottage has also changed. I'm so sorry. Because more often than not, there's forest fire smoke that's like keeping us from just being carefree and relaxing outside. And the fact that our environment is so, the fact that our environment is so sensitive and we're losing it at such an alarming rate, it seems so incredibly important that we can trust in environmental protection zoning. It seems it would be an incredible, incredible disservice, not only to all the animals that live there and to the people who love that land, but it would be a disservice to the belief of the community that we can do anything to protect our environment if something that has been zoned, EP zoning, is just changed at the behest of a developer. So that's sort of all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for listening to me today. I love this swamp, and I hope that you can find it in your heart to protect it.
Thank you very much. Your passion is contagious, so thank you very much. Kevin Hale, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Identify yourself and your address.
My name is Kevin Hale. My address in Muskoka is 50 Summit Drive. So first of all, I just wanted to thank you all for being here. I think given what we've heard, that the passions that are at play here and the emotions obviously indicate the meaning of this lands to people. I don't think that can be ignored. I trust that my letter of opposition has been received and been reviewed, and I trust that all of them will be considered moving forward with this decision. I know there've been a number of them submitted, all with important different points. Just at first, with some of the opening comments from Mr. Rhodes with respect to this being a local project, I mean, I reject that. He admitted that he lives in, or there's a cottage in Morgan Bay. He has the Killarney Lodge. His email address domain was the Killarney Lodge. The corporate profile report has his London address on it. So, I mean, if being a cottager here makes you local, I guess I'm a local too. So let's not get distracted by that because it's not relevant, but this is arguably not a local project. Councillor Finson, I think, commented on this. There's a need for housing, obviously, but affordable housing is what people need. The initial proposals for this project from 2006 talked about them being $2 million plus range. That's not affordable housing. Just look at the real estate markets that are in the same area. If you look at comparable listings, there's things that are easily $2 million at $3 million and up. These houses will be over $1 million. That's not affordable housing. So I don't think that can be a consideration for this project at all. And one thing I want to note about is that there is a claim that this particular application and the application for the subdivision are disconnected. And I mean, they might be disconnected on paper, but I think the implications of them need to be considered together. Notably, there's a claim that there's no connection, but the reports that were submitted to support the severance application reference the subdivision and vice versa. Particularly the fact that the subject property is the only water frontage and lake access for the entire parcel. There's another one that notes that initially there was a consideration for public or shared lake access for residents and for neighbors. I mean, I think it's clear the connection to the water access has been there all along. And arguably the attempt to disconnect them presently is just an act to kind of disguise the true nature of the intended use and to support the potential approval of this zoning application, even though there's a potential connected use to the subdivision. Specifically, Mr. Rhodes was very clear in his letter to us and to you that the remainder parcel will be sold separately. And Mr. Rhodes is a former corporate lawyer and knows the importance of language. If we believe that the land is to be severed and sold, there's no guarantee it will be sold on the open market and at arm's length to a third party. I think it's entirely possible it gets sold just to another corporation that's involved with Rosso Springs Limited or someone else that's involved with it. I think there's also no guarantee that it will be sold at all. If the zoning is approved and if building permits are approved, even if there's not zoning approved, they can currently get a building permit on what's currently there. There's not much stopping the owner from inviting residents of the new subdivision to come and enjoy their waterfront property as guests. I think these must be considered moving forward. I'm a lawyer as well. I think one of the things that I deal with in my job is risk, and there's a significant risk here that the true intentions of these subject lands are being withheld. And I think these need to be considered in reviewing all of this application, and in particular the reports that have been submitted, as well as the peer reviews. A number of people have noted discrepancies in the reports and information that was not submitted until very recently. And I'd like to share my screen if possible. I think the share screen capability was permitted.
Yep. Oh, go ahead.
Can you see that?
Yep. Yes, we can.
And can you see my cursor moving there?
I don't think we can see your cursor, but we can see
Okay,
the
so that's fine if you
outline.
can't
And
see the
most of us have
cursor.
that in our agenda package as well.
Yeah,
Oh, you-
so one thing I just want to draw attention to, just to support the points I've just made. I mean, this is obviously for the subdivision application, and Maplehurst Road is clearly seen there where lots 29, 30, and 31 are. There's the brown dashed line leading to the east direction to lots 44 and 45. And then there's a road to the left of that that lead from lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 to Maplehurst Road and over to watercourses. Anyone that's been in this area knows that the watercourse there, I call it a waterfall because at most of the times of the year it is. I must ask, I don't see the purpose for the road leading from lot 7 to Maplehurst Road with significant expense to safely cross 2 permanent watercourses if like it leads directly to the lands that are subject of this zoning application. So I maintain that the connection between these 2 properties, it's obviously there. I don't see another reason for this road to exist other than that. I'm not a planner. Perhaps that question can be answered in the future, but I just wanted to draw people's attention to that.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And I do want to warn people that at this point, we're just looking at the single lot severance. I believe we have Steve Rohacek online from the Muskoka Lakes Association. Steve, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
We can. Can you, can you identify your name? I think we've got that, and your address.
Sure. Steve Rohacek. My Muskoka address is 1138 Leonard Lake Road number 2 in Muskoka Lakes, P1LOM5. And as you had mentioned, I'm here on behalf of the Muskoka Lakes Association. So we've had an opportunity to listen to a lot of the speakers. We looked at all the information presented by the applicant, staff report, peer review, letter by the Lake Joseph North Association, and the most recent letter by the applicant dated May 31st. In general, if the policies of the official plan are applied, I don't think the Muskoka Lakes Association has a huge issue with the consent severance application. But the one thing I would point out, and making sure I'm not repeating what others have said, is there is the application of D8, the narrow water bodies policy, in reviewing the severance application. And specifically, it says where lot creation is proposed in narrow water bodies, larger lot frontages shall be required to maintain the character of the shoreline. If you then look at page 3 of the staff report, which has a picture there of the layout, just visually speaking, I'm not sure the frontage of that particular subject property, which is being created, would meet the test under the narrow water bodies policy. You know, visually speaking, it's going to be the shortest frontage in the entire bay. And given that, you know, we've heard there is a wetlands and type 1 fish habitat in the bottom of the bay, I would question that. We do have some concerns regarding the change of zoning from EP to SR1. When you look at changing zoning, a lot of people have talked about the environmental aspects of the southern portion of the bay, the wetlands, the floodplain. I won't go there, but one has to assess whether or not the zoning which is going to be approved or potentially approved to SR1 is actually suitable for the bottom of the bay. When you look at SR1 and it's on the waterfront, you have to assume waterfront activities. You know, you have to look at potentially what structures could be built. You're looking at water access. You're looking at boating, swimming, and other activities. And are those conducive to the type of zoning being requested relative to the wetland in the type 1 fish habitat, which has been documented at the bottom of the bay. Specifically, when we did review some of the reports that were provided, we found there was a lack of characterization in the bottom of the bay relative to, you know, depth, sediment, what vegetation is there. So it's really, from reading the report, it's hard to understand what's there, and there's no inventory. And when you look at some of the mapping that was done, there is some mapping with regards to ecological sites, but they speak of wildlife sampling and things that are mapped, but you don't know where those were. And you cannot then look at the cause and effect of what the conclusions are, and you can trace where the sampling was back to those conclusions. So there's some questions regarding that as well. I won't go into fish habitat too much, but type 1 fish habitat is extremely sensitive. I'd question whether adjacent activities resultant from the severance, if it goes through, would be conducive to that type of protection of that zone. Flooding's an issue. I think municipalities have unfairly been saddled with flooding in Muskoka in general when it's not your jurisdiction. A lot of people don't understand it's the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, but this is a decision which actually you do control with respect to putting something potentially in a floodplain. You know, at this point, you know, I don't think I have anything further except to conclude and say, Certainly, I think earlier speakers have alluded to it. There's no more vacant land in Muskoka, or not much. There's going to be a lot of pressure on municipalities across Muskoka to make decisions on land which is possibly not suitable or just not appropriate for a waterfront lot. I don't think there's been enough information presented and data and hard facts to support the application at this time. Thank you.
I believe between the clerk and I, we've recognized everybody that wanted to speak, but I want to double check that there's no one else online or in the audience that is hoping to speak. I really appreciate the passion, the investment of time. I'm coming today and writing all your letters. Council doesn't take these decisions lightly, and this is not being deferred today. It was never, ever supposed to be a decision today. It's a public meeting where we listen. So there's no deferral happening. It will come back to council at a later date as determined by our planning department. I would like to give Mr. Rhodes and Deloitte Development a little piece of advice. Share everything, please, and share them in the complete format. Don't cite paragraphs of portions of ecological studies and expect the people to believe in transparency. Share the full report and all of the reports, not portions of them. And I think you'll go a long way to building trust with the people you're dealing with. But to date, it's been very, very difficult to get the full reports. So that's advice from this council, to share what you've got in its entirety with anybody that wants it. So thank you very much. Council, have any further questions? Nope. Thank you. So I have a motion that the public meeting held for the following matters is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. The consent application B 2024-0005-H for Tate, and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2022-0021-H for Nestman, and zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2023-0026-H, and consent application number B 2023-0026-H. Can I have a mover? Ed? Adams, all in favor? Thank you. Oh, right. So out of the three, we have one motion that motion that the council of the corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent application number B 2024-0005-H for Tate, subject to the conditions set out in the decision. And that was the first one we discussed. Can I have a mover to that effect? Greg? Miriam? All in favor? Thank you. Council will now consider the following road allowance applications. Road allowance application number RAS 2023-0010-F for Wright on Otter Lake. Concession road allowance application number RAC 2022-0012-H for Reese. And Shore Road Allowance Application Number RAS 2023-0011 and 0012-F for Dawes on Rankin Lake. Have any written objections been received related to these applications?
No written objections have been received.
Is there anyone present in person in the council chambers that wishes to speak to these applications? Doesn't look like it. Has anyone registered to speak to these applications via electronic participation?
No one has registered to speak to these applications by electronic participation.
I have a motion that bylaw number 2024-050 be a bylaw that votes and sell portions of the original shore road allowance application number RAF 2023-0010-F for right is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. A motion that bylaw number 2024-051 being a bylaw of D lot 62 of Plan M being pursuant to section 4 of the planning lot not to be on plan of subdivision property roll number 4903-030-005-08900 file number D 2023-00. Shoot. Sorry, my mic wasn't on, so I have to start this one again. Sorry. I have a motion that bylaw number 2024-051 being a bylaw to deem lot 62 of Plan M 2020 pursuant to section 50(4) of the Planning Act not to be on a plan of subdivision, property roll number 4903-030-005-08900, file number D 2023-0009-F for right is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Can I have a mover? Reagan Mario. All in favor? Thank you. And the next one is a motion that bylaw number 2024-049 being a bylaw to close, stop up and sell portions of the original concession road allowance application number RAC 2022-0012-H for Rees is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. I have a mover. Ted. And Terry. All in favor? One more. That was Reese. There should be one more for Dawes. Yep, okay. I have a motion that bylaw number 2024-055 being a bylaw to close, stop up and sell portions of the original shore road allowance application number RAS 2023-0011 and 0012-F for Dawes and Ontario 2306153, Ontario Inc. is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Mario and Ken, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Thanks, Gail. Okay. And now we move to delegations.
It should take a 5-minute break and set this presentation.
Oh, okay. We're going to take a brief break while the clerk sets this presentation up for David Bywater from Georgian Bay Biosphere. So if anybody wants to take a quick 5-minute break.
Pardon me? Oh. I was torn. I was actually kind of perspective. That's the point. And just got it was interesting. Yeah.
Residents and then for the libraries for sharing presentations.
I'd love to read the rationale.
Pretty basic when you're ready to go forward.
Yep.
And back. Should be.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I think Dominique's gonna speak just a bit.
Yeah, Dominique is, okay.
If you,
Oh, yeah, there we go.
I don't know. I think that's me. She should come up.
Yeah. You're good there. We. Speaker notes? You gonna go into presenter mode then, or you're just gonna leave it like that?
I'll just leave it like that. My presenting mode hasn't been working.
Pardon?
It hasn't been working when I do presenter mode because I have it on use presenter view. Oh, and then I have to do this, I think. I have to do the dots.
Well, usually it's a split screen.
Yeah.
presenter mode, right?
Yeah.
At least it's cleaner and easier that way.
Yeah. Wait, what's this? It's on that one.
Might as
Okay.
well just go to yours, because.
Yeah, because you have yours.
Yeah, I got it right. Interesting. So what was the argument for ditching EP?
Well, all the residents didn't agree, but obviously, but developer was that, oh, well, actually, the line actually continues into what is currently, so I can't remember what that is, but.
Hey, just.
How are you?
Good. Yeah.
See you.
Good. You know Angela?
Angela, yes.
Nice to meet you. Oh,
Sarah?
Sarah.
Nice to meet you. Sorry.
No worries. I was just getting the recap. I was like, that'd be interesting to know the scientific rationale for EP to rural housing. And was just giving it to me. Yeah. You have the right consultant and you get the answer you want.
Yeah, so you know the consultant on it?
Gail, are you enjoying your time away?
No,
Yes,
there's
it's
no one.
absolutely beautiful. Ireland
we're-
is stunning.
Well, we're just waiting for Ken Adams to come back and then we will start.
I might have to pop out because I have to leave here at 4 in the morning. And it's a 9 o'clock-ish now, I guess. So,
Okay. All right, we're all here. So Dominique, are you on?
I'm
There
here.
she is. So Dominique, you're gonna do a little bit of an introduction, I think. So you have the floor.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor McDermott and Council. We are very thankful to have received funding in the amount of $136,000 from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. And this funding is to support wetland restoration in Seguin. So the funding allows us to partner with Georgian Bay Biosphere to help remove and manage invasive Phragmites. GBB is here today to explain more about the project and how it can improve the health of our existing wetlands. So I'll pass it on over to GBB.
Excellent. Thanks, Dominique. There we are. Good afternoon. Thanks so much. So from the GBB, there's 4 staff that you're going to see quite often associated with this project. I'm one of them, David Bywater. I'm the Director of Lands and Waters Programs. And then Angela Vander Eiken, Theron Korn, and Kieran Walters, who's probably watching along online. So presentation outline, I'll just go into a little overview of MECP's WCPP. That's a lot of acronyms. So that's the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks Wetland Conservation Partner Program. Then we'll do a little bit of an intro overview of invasive species management, get into the specifics of some of the things we'll be doing with Seguin on this project, and wrap it up with community involvement. Oh, wow. We just somehow jumped right to the end. I'm doing a great job on this tech, clearly. Okay, trying to go backwards. And we're done.
None of these buttons work.
None of the buttons are working. Yeah, Craig, can you take us back to boom, boom. There we are. Oh, one more. Thanks. Yeah, thanks. I don't have clicking powers anymore. Great. So yeah, the funding's coming from Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. Obviously in Ontario, wetlands are really important. And here in Seguin, they're recognized as being really important as well. They provide ecological goods and services that have environmental, economic, and societal benefits, some of which the fund's trying to improve water quality, mitigating stormwater impacts, increasing climate change resiliency, and several other benefits that you can see listed on the slide here. Next slide, please. Angela, fantastic job. But as we also know, wetlands in this region face numerous threats, one of which is invasive species and specifically from Phragmites. That top picture there, you can see Phragmites in a wetland. So that's a great example. So specifically with this project, we want to improve the function of wetlands in Seguin. We're going at about 10 to 20 sites. And by doing that, we'll impact numerous benefits that was mentioned in the previous slide and listed again here. Next slide.
It just stopped working.
I know, there's a delay to it. Glad I'm not the only one. Oh,
It worked backwards. Oh, there.
hey, there we are. So this slide here shows you the cost to municipalities of individual invasive species. Phragmites is 5th on this list. The data is from 2019, and specifically for Phragmites, that cost Ontario municipalities $2.8 million back in 2019. I would assume that would have increased by then. But yeah, this slide's really good just to give you an kind of that sliding scale of orange there, municipal cost by individual invasive species. So when it comes to invasive species management, it pays to invest in early detection and prevention and management. This invasion curve shows that the earlier you detect and manage invasives, the more money you can save in the long run. So here in Seguin, we have this window of opportunity to eradicate and contain Phragmites in wetlands. And we hope that this project that we're doing with Seguin will start that process. Over to Ange.
There we go. All right, so how are we actually going to go about managing, controlling invasive Phragmites in Seguin wetlands? For this project, there are 4 main components that we have proposed on the screen here. So the first one is a Phragmites management plan. This is something that we're going to be working on throughout the duration of the project, and will be culminating in December. There's 3 main components for that Phragmites management plan. An updated Phragmites map. Right now, there are some observations that are currently existing through existing reporting tools like iNaturalist and EdMaps. But with our boots on the ground, with Seguin staff who are now trained on the ground, as well as community members, really amping up those records and getting the known locations of Phragmites on the map. And then strategies for Phragmites management, disposal, and maintenance. Those will all be in the Phragmites management plan, as well as whatever lessons and best practices we learn through this season of actually controlling Phragmites. And then lastly, it will include a prioritization of wetlands based on short and long-term management. For the second component there, this is something that we've already actually done. The training workshop for Phragmites identification and management was held in May at the arena, actually. Seguin staff participated. I think we had a total of about 35 participants, as well as community members who were also involved in that. And that was co-delivered with the experts at Georgian Bay Forever. As you see in that bottom picture there, we actually did head down the road to a local Phragmites stand and did a little demo of how it would be removed in person. The third component that we're starting to work on right now is verifying priority sites and coordinating the actual Phragmites removal and disposal. I did want to mention that for that, we are making use of our new drone to go into wetlands where we can't maybe access by foot, and as well using the EdMaps reporting and an internal prioritization tool that we've developed. And then lastly, the fourth component of this project is to revisit those managed areas, determine what worked well, what was effective, what wasn't, and include that in best management practices for the future moving forward. So I did talk a little bit about this already, but this is a snapshot of our timeline for this project. So as I mentioned, we've already done the training workshop and we've already begun to scout wetlands to identify additional patches of Phragmites that would not originally recorded. That will continue throughout the month of June. And then moving into July and August, that's when we'll be conducting the actual removal and disposal with the help of Public Works staff. There's 2 main methods which we'll be removing Phragmites with, depending on if the patch is terrestrial or aquatic. Because the nature of this funding and this project is mainly focused on aquatic areas and wetlands, we'll mostly be using the cut to drown method, which can be used with either cane cutters or hedge trimmers, and that's actually a lot more effective than the terrestrial removal as well. And then alongside those activities from June to September, we'll be updating the Phragmites map and also updating the Phragmites management plan. Then in the fall, we'll revisit those sites that were managed and again, go through that process of making recommendations, seeing what worked well. And then finally, we'll complete project reporting and deliver the actual Phragmites management plan in December. Here you go. So as mentioned before, community involvement through education and awareness is key to invasive species management and therefore also the success of this project. Public Works staff and GBB staff can only cover so much ground, and there are going to be a lot of patches that are located on private property. So that's why we opened the training workshop to members of the public. And to accompany this, we've created this invasive Phragmites identification and reporting handout. So that's been given to Seguin staff who have distributed that to public facilities. And as well, this version of this handout will be converted into a social media post that will be posted soon for members of the public to again see on social media. And then just the next slide that I have on community involvement. Yeah. So we not only want the community to be aware of Phragmites, what it looks like, how to report it, but we also want them to be part of the solution. So we're encouraging staff and the public to again download and report Phragmites through the EdMaps Pro app, but we also are hoping to hold a community cut event at a public facing area such as Humphrey Barn Nature Trails to invite any community members who are interested in taking part in removing that Phragmites. And we hope that by involving the community throughout various stages of the project, we can cultivate a lasting interest and awareness that will carry forward past the end duration of this funding as well. And I think with that, I have a slide for questions. There you go.
Councillor Bazinski.
I've got a comment as well as a question. The comment is that you should probably get a list of the Lake Association presidents, because I know I was recently at the Otter Lake annual general meeting and they were talking about Phragmites being an issue and what they wanted to do. So that might be good for two reasons. One, to identify patches that you may not have, and secondly, there are a lot of volunteers who would be happy to help. So that's my comment. And if you have a problem getting it, the township should have an up-to-date list. I can give you one if you don't.
I think Kara, who works for Dominique, keeps a pretty up-to-date list of executives, so.
Okay, good. The question I have is, what about purple loosestrife? Is there any in the area? Thank you.
Yes, so there is some. I did forget to mention it, but for any of the sites that we are going to be managing invasive Phragmites at, if there is purple loosestrife there, that was almost a bad slip up. If there is purple loosestrife there, we will also be managing that. Yeah.
Councillor Collins.
Thank you for coming today, by the way. You were mentioning to eradicate them, you were saying you might even use a weed whacker. That cuts them down, but does it stop them from growing again? Are they like a perennial type weed, I guess you could say, or?
Yes, yes. So they are perennial. They'll come back every year. It can take up to 7 years to completely eradicate a stand of invasive Phragmites. The way that it's best managed is by repeated cutting. So the hedge trimmers that I mentioned would be used in a situation where the stalks of Phragmites are very, very dense and there's no other native vegetation that's currently living in that dense stand because it does it all at once. The cane cutters would be used in a situation where you still have native vegetation growing in and amongst the invasive Phragmites, so you can selectively cut and allow for that other native vegetation to live and hopefully bolster up its presence there over a while.
So they actually flower, say like a dandelion.
They go to seed. So they have their big dense seed heads. By August, they'll have their really dense, like purpley seed heads. All of the cutting is done typically before it's gone to seed. You can cut, although it's less effective because all of the energy is not in the top of the plant when it's seeding, but you can cut when it's seeded, but you have to remove the seed heads first. Again, not as effective if you're cutting before it goes to seed.
So then I guess they spread by the roots.
Yep, they spread by seed. They can also spread by fragments of their rhizomes or roots. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that's why, sorry, I just want to mention that's why when you're managing it, you don't actually go and cut the actual roots. You cut the stalk so that the water pours into the stalk and essentially floods out the roots.
Thank you. We need you badly because they're popping up all over the place. And I know it's not a particularly pleasant task to tackle them. So thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda and addendum for the June 3rd, 2024 meeting of council. Could I have a motion to that effect? Greg and Mario. All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2024-058, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Dobrila Vukelic related to an agreement under section 51, bracket 26 of the Planning Act, RSO as amended, file number ARG-2024-0004-F, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Do we have anybody to talk to it? Do we have any questions? It was Taylor. But
I think Taylor, I think is still here, but we'll try to avoid making him speak unless council has any questions.
it's pretty straightforward and complete in the report. So no questions? Can I have a mover? Ken and Mario, all in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that as per staff report number RD 2024-011, Ferris Road Hill update attached as Schedule A to this resolution, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the recommended option 2 of the report. Could I have a mover to that, Ted? And a seconder, somebody? Gail, okay. Tom, do you want to talk to it at all? I saw a little bit of correspondence on this.
Certainly, thank you, Mayor and members of council. So a couple months ago, presented all the history on this, and it was just brought back to do a financial update, which was also spun off of a 2022 report from finance. Michelle wrote it, and basically the direction at that point was to see where the Ferris Road Hill, Ferris Road in general, fit into the road needs study, which was adopted or passed earlier this year. It fell outside of that 10-year capital forecast. So this report in front of you here is just exercising the waiting till 2028 for the updated road needs study. Recommend that we go through that study, and also just encourage the residents that there are options at their disposal as well. So here to answer any questions you may have.
Councilor Getty.
Thank you, Tom. Mine isn't really a question. Mine is, I understand the financial implications relative to it. We've had the recent road needs study, but the recommendation is for option number 2. And I propose that if we're going to pass this, that we amend it to pass option 2 and option 3. I think that if we are deferring as a council to the 2028 road needs study, I think we have to be able to, if residents decide between now and then that they want to pursue option number 3, then we as a council have to be in a position to be able to work with them for that. So I would like to amend to the motion for option 1, or sorry, option 2 and 3. Thank you.
Councilor Bazinski.
I'll second that motion. I think one thing that the residents on Ferris Road have to understand, and they're long suffering, there's no question about it. Tom, you could maybe give us some ideas on what our annual road costs are and where Ferris Road fits into the hierarchy of things. But and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but my understanding is that with Ferris Road, it's a summer maintenance road. So that might put it at a higher level than, say, Second Line, which is a private road, privately owned road. However, our first priority is to maintain the roads we have in terms of summer grading, winter plowing, and so on, and that we're financially it's going to be very difficult to spend $1 million on Ferris Road when we have to spend a lot of money on our existing roads, but perhaps you could give us a sort of a context.
Be happy to. So it's quite outside of the I'm just going to use the 10-year capital forecast or the top 10 listed roads in that report, the road needs study report. Yes, it is a summer road. There are, we have almost 400 kilometers of road, almost 30 kilometers of seasonal roads, Ferris Road being included in there. There's a lot of work just in the road needs study alone, and that presentation that we have I believe the figure was $5.8 million, $5.8 million a year deficit in our capital program to keep up with what's going on. And to be frank, yeah, all of our roads right now, not all, I shouldn't say all, but a good portion of our roads right now are dwindling quickly. And we're seeing them in phone calls and driving the roads, road patrols. We're just playing catch up with the existing stuff we have right now. And I feel for the residents of Ferris Road. I get it, it's been going on for many years, but yeah, there's 400 kilometers of other roads that we got to maintain as well. So it's just prioritizing how everything kind of fits into place here, and it's quite the puzzle, that's for sure.
Councillor Adams.
Oops. My understanding, and I think when we first started talking about this, when I started talking to Tom, we kind of agreed or thought about putting so much every year for a few years into the budget for a project like this. And now it's falling out of the current capital planning period. And seems to be, I think in the last paragraph, staff received direction from council to include Ferris Road and Ferris Road Hill in future capital forecasts. If council gave direction to include Ferris Road past the hill, how did it fall outside the study? Like when it started, it was supposed to be in the study.
CA was going.
It's a good question, Councillor Adams, and I think just to assist, the Ferris Road was completed as a road segment within the roads needs study. The hill identifies a portion of a road segment. It is not a standalone project identified in the roads needs study. The road itself is identified in the roads needs study, and therefore fell outside of, because the road didn't meet the criteria that some of the others had. And to put a fine point on it, the council direction, as I recall, and I believe it's outlined in this staff report, identified to place the project Ferris Road, to place that into the capital program once the roads need study was complete. The roads need study is complete. It didn't reach the top 10, the next 10 years of planning, and therefore it's not in that infrastructure program. And I'll just add one further point, because we'd spoke about in the last term of council, there was a seasonal roads budget. It was a fairly small value annual contribution towards upgrading and converting some of those seasonal roads to year-round maintenance. That program had progressed to a point where what we're left with is no longer add a cul-de-sac or put a couple of feet on over a couple 100 feet to widen the road to allow for winter maintenance. What's left now on those roads are fairly significant projects that cost millions of dollars, including Ferris Road. And so therefore they fall, and that's why the criteria was reevaluated and sent out in the roads needs study to evaluate all of our roads and ensure that we understand what the entire roadway network and our entire infrastructure program looks like, so that we can properly forecast, budget, and develop based on engineered priorities.
Can I just say one other thing? I know this has been on the table for many years. And since you've done the 10-year, we're doing the 10 years where the hill has nothing to do with the study. But the hill has been on the table for so many years. You know, and it is a safety issue. And it's, you know, I think I don't think I support the amendment myself. I think I don't think I'll support it.
Sorry, just to respond to Councillor Adams, the roads needs study provides advice and guidance towards to staff and to council on what our priorities ought to be. Ultimately, you're the decision body. If the direction from council is to proceed with constructing Ferris Road and the associated hill of that road, then we follow your direction. That's up to council to decide what you'd like us to do.
Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mayor. When we were doing or changing the seasonal roads to full-time roads, there was a budget. And I don't know where that budget has gone, but I think we took it up to about $200,000 a year that was in a budget for these roads being changed to from seasonal to all seasons roads. So you were asking about monies where that can be contributed to the Ferris Hill project. And I don't know where that monies have gone. So has this been, I guess, married into the roads department or? Thank you.
I'll ask our treasurer to correct me if I'm wrong, but any monies that were committed to the seasonal road conversion program prior to 2022, I believe, have been spent. And then we discussed as council and with staff during that year's budget to eliminate that project and to allocate the funds to the roads capital program. So not specific to any one type of road, but to the priorities of the roadway network.
Yeah, thank you. Sometimes I don't know what year that was, but it was a couple of years ago then. But it was this council though, wasn't it? Oh, it wasn't this council. Oh, okay, the previous council.
Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. I remember the seasonal roads proposal because I was part of the proposal. I think we started with $100,000, I think. And what the intent was is to go through the township and look at the seasonal roads and basically where's the low hanging fruit? Where can we convert, like upgrade and convert and provide an extended service to the residents for very little cost? Because there were some roads where they plowed to within 600 feet of the end of it and they'd stop because there was no place to turn around at the end of it. The turnaround was before. So it was a pretty simple solution. Let's build a turnaround at the end, cost very little to run the snowplow another half a kilometer and turn it around and come back out. And we were pretty successful the first year. We picked 5 or 6 opportunities that were selected by Public Works. We were able to fix it, provide an extended service. Then we lobbied for more money. We've done well, so give us some more dough. So we upped it to about 2 or 250, I think. And we went through and we did everything that we could find in the township. So to Mr. Inman's point, it became a point where anything that was left was big money. So, the Ferris Road Hill, of course, had a life of its own, and there wasn't really a solution. We needed to find a solution. Let's at least get a solution that's viable, that can be dealt with, because the reason why it spun around for so long is it just spun around. There was not a solution. So we have a solution now, and the land transfer is gonna stop. The question becomes, okay, when we look at the overall costs of trying to get our road infrastructure back to where it should be, right? The arterial roads, the roads where the school buses run, where the roads that you take to get to the Ferris Road Hill or any other bad hill in this township, it's a bit daunting. You know, that's where the shortfall is. So I support the amendment because it gives an option. But, you know, whoever's sitting at this table in 2028 is going to try their best to see if they can put it in a capital budget. Or there's an option there if you guys want to go ahead sooner, right? And, you know, probably by 2028, quite frankly, the writing's going to be on the wall before that. You know, there's a lot of big projects that have to be done in this township in the next 3 or 4 years on the roads. And I mean, the roads need study was pretty clear. So to me, I think that's a logical recommendation, and I would support that. So thank you.
Ken, you want to speak again?
Yeah, as long as the Ferris Hill is put into that roads need study, where it's not in it at this point. And I remember the summer maintenance roads too. They talked back in the day about putting that towards that hill, that money towards that hill, and that never happened. It like you said, it's gone.
I think it's really important to remember what put the roads in the roads need study. It measured how many people drive down it, how many year round versus seasonal. And in doing that for the whole township, Ferris Road simply didn't come to the top of the pile. There weren't enough people or enough traffic to bring it to the top of the roads needs study pile of priorities. And that could happen again in 2028 because it's based on an algorithm of numbers of people. So as unsafe as it is, it's not coming to the top pile of priorities. So if we give the few people that live there the option to come forward financially, it does give them one other door to look at. There is a whole formula that Michelle can take you through of what percentage you need to go and everything, but it is an option that they can begin looking at on their own. But I think it's important to understand what percolated to the top of the roads need study was a scientific thing of numbers of peoples and volume, basically, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're relatively accurate, Your Worship. There's I don't have the criteria used, but you know, we retained a third-party engineering firm to undertake an engineering exercise and establish the criteria, and the results are the results as you've described.
Councillor Adams, last point.
Is it possible to get a list of what roads are going to be done in the next?
Yeah,
Because there's a lot of complaints coming in right now, and I'm getting a lot of them. In just in Ward 1, so I don't imagine what these guys are getting.
so
The
council
conditions.
adopted the roads need study, and it details a priority list of roads.
Yeah.
But
what roads are they gonna do?
So well, again, that's subject to council's direction, went through when we do the budget process. So council, I think it was the last meeting of council, approved the engineering for Blackwater. Is that right? Blackwater Road, because that's the #1 road identified in the roads needs study.
And
So
it does.
we start the engineering on Blackwater this year. We bring a budget to council for 2025. Council either approves or directs us to do otherwise. The plan would be, from our perspective, you'll see dollars coming for Blackwater Road next year. We start that construction work. Happy to circulate that list around for council if you want it to be fresh on hand. But it was included as part of the roads needs study, and that was adopted earlier this year, late last year. I don't remember off the top of my head, by council.
Thank you. So do we have a what do we have on?
So we have a proposed, so you have the motion as you read it with a proposed amendment that says adopt the recommended option 2 and option 3 of the report. And that was moved by Councillor Getty and seconded by Councillor Buzinski. So it's the first thing is a vote on the proposed amendment. That's why I don't want to write it on in case it doesn't.
Oh,
okay.
Okay. So we have an amendment to add to the final sentence. Seguin does hereby adopt the recommended option 2, and it would say option 2 and 3 of this report. And that's moved by Greg, seconded by Mario. All in favor of putting that in? So can I now option 2 and option 3? And who's the counselor? Is it you, Mario, or is Ken? So you need now to communicate with the residents how they go about it. So I'll read the whole thing. We have a motion that as per staff report number RD 2024-011, Ferris Road Hill update attached as Schedule A to this resolution. The Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the recommended option 2 and option 3 of the report. All in favor as I read it? Okay, so that's carried. So this is just a report, isn't it? It's Forest, I think.
Chris Hadley is.
Is that it? No, so there is no.
Yeah.
Hi, Forrest. So I believe you and Chris Hadley maybe might be on screen to give us a report.
Absolutely, Your Mayor. We're quite pleased to present the 2023 Water Quality and benthic Monitoring Report. Obviously, these reports are fairly technical with many intricacies. We're lucky to have Chris Hadley on the conference call here with us this afternoon to answer any of the more technical questions regarding the water quality sampling. And any technical questions that I can't answer myself from the benthic monitoring report, we will have to field to the Georgian Bay Biosphere. But with that being said, we're open for any questions that council may have regarding either report, and any comments, questions? And the only other thing that I wanted to add was we are lucky in this sampling year for 2024 that we have the 2 same students that we had in 2023. And you'll note in the report, they did quantifiably did very well and had excellent sampling techniques. And so with that being said, any questions?
Well, it's a very complete report. Thank you. Does council have any questions? No, it's great. It's very interesting. Okay, I'll get to you to see which lakes we're building up repetitive testing on. Councillor Adams.
I know they tested one at my place, and when they got the study, they said there was no leach on the list, and there's lots of leach in there, and I couldn't understand why it wasn't on the list. It's just a comment more than anything.
Through your worship.
Have an answer for him, Chris? Did you pick up all the leaches, or because he says there are leaches where it says there are no leaches?
That's not me, that's Forrest. I didn't do the benthics, I did the water quality, so.
Yeah, I was going to say that. In that particular specific scenario, it might be best if that sort of a question could be fielded directly to the Georgian Bay Biosphere, and I'm happy to reach out to them on that topic.
Councillor Buzinski.
I think from my experience, because Otter Lake's been doing eDNA as well as benthic and so on, and with the eDNA, it just happens to be what critters happen to be in the area at the time. And I would imagine it would be the same thing for the benthic. Maybe for whatever reason, the leeches avoided that area that they tested, and you're never going to get it perfect. It's I think it's just happened to be when they did the testing, that's what they found, and that's a point in time.
Thank you very much and keep doing it. It's reassuring to see the repetitive sampling over a couple of years. Oh, sorry, Councillor Collins.
Sorry, Forrest. On the lakes to sample for 2024, you have listed 17 lakes. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that are highlighted. What does that mean? And that's in the middle. That's Draper Lake, Dyson Lake, Forget Lake, Giro Lake, Home Lake, Hooten Lake.
It's on page 386 of the agenda package.
Chris, would you like to speak to the lakes chosen and what the highlighting stands for?
Yeah, so there should be more than 17 lakes. Sounds like there might have been a formatting issue in the table or the reproduction of it. So there should be 3 columns of lakes. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're right, 7 lakes that are highlighted. So the shaded lakes, that's in a note under the table. Maybe it didn't reproduce on yours, but what it says is that the shaded lakes haven't been previously sampled. So those lakes are lakes that we have in the past had on our lists and been unsuccessful at reaching. So some of the lakes we have access issues, either that the students can't safely access it with their boat, or maybe if it's accessed through a private property, we're not able to acquire permission in a timely fashion in order to access that lake. So I highlighted those lakes because one of my goals as we've gotten further along in this program, in addition to building up the longer data sets, is to try and cross off the lakes that we're missing entirely and get at least some data from all of the lakes that are on our list, our large list, our master list, and also to try and get as many of the lakes that we sample now to either 5 years worth of data or 10 years worth of data, because those are sort of key numbers of data, which some of the mathematical analyses that we do looking at change over time becomes more viable to do. You can't really do that at all until you've got at least 5 years of data reliably, and 10 is even better. So if we start getting close to 10, I try and highlight a lake, or if we've got a lake with 3 or 4 years worth of data, I try and get that 5th year worth of data, or if we have a lake with no data at all, I try and get those. But in some cases, I think some of these lakes we might have to look at the list and decide to revise and take off the list permanently if they're unaccessible safely.
Yes.
That's why.
And there are some lakes that doesn't have any residents on them or cottages at all. So I'm assuming that the priority is dealing with lakes that have cottages and homes on first, right?
Absolutely. Lakes that have access to them, road access going into them, are usually ones that have cottages on them already, because that's what gets the roads built. The monitoring program was originally designed out of the modeling of the lakes that was done from a planning standpoint. So there was modeling done on the lakes to determine whether or not further development on the lakes was possible. And then this water quality program came out of that original model to try and gather more information on those lakes to improve the modeling. Now, the modeling hasn't been updated yet, but the goal is to collect data on as many lakes as we can to inform that modeling. So it's
so
really
you're talking about the modeling that was done in 2009?
Yes. Which is before my time, but yes.
And before mine too. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I recognize the name of one of the lakes, and I believe a few years ago, the people going into sample were kicked off by the private owner. So there's various reasons why people don't want strangers paddling around in their lake and stuff. So some of them may not be top priority if there's one house on them. Yes,
And-
Forrest.
Yes, and through your worship, the one thing I would like to note is we've been working diligently to modernize the collection process to streamline it. As you know, the more lakes we can accomplish in a sampling season, the better positioned we are for subsequent years. That might not be as easy to access, or maybe there's weather considerations. And so working cross-organizationally, we've built some pretty neat tools that not only expedite the data collection process, it also increases the safety of the sampling students in that we can observe their breadcrumbs being dropped as they're moving through. And they're using these same systems to document these access points for subsequent years to contact the landowners and perhaps find new landowners. So.
Thanks very much. Great. Yep. So we're moving now to the addendum item, which is the conservation and demand management plan. You'll recall that it was presented at the last meeting and deferred because it was such a big document, kind of, and everybody wanted more time to read it. So I now have the motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the 2024 to 2029 Conservation Demand Management Plan Corporation of the Township of Seguin, attached as Schedule A to this resolution. And there were no comments received between the previous council and now. So can I have a motion to this effect? Greg? And Ted. All in favor of adopting it? Thank you. And I have a motion that as per motion number 2024-24 of the Township of Seguin Public Library Board, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby revoke the appointment of Terry Retzler as a member of the Township of Seguin Public Library Board, and that council does hereby direct staff to advertise for letters of interest to fill vacancies on the Public Library Board. Could I have a mover, Greg and Mario? All in favor? Thank you. And she gets the thank you note.
Don't know, apparently she never attended.
Okay. So now we have a motion for the financials, right?
No,
Oh,
it's there. You need to speak or is that?
we're gonna do that. Yep. Isn't there another?
Two different motions, Greg, on the library.
Yeah, and it's there for council. There's no motion from us for it. There's.
For the monthly
Again,
financial?
the representative was going to speak to.
Oh, okay. So Greg Getty, as we speak to item 9A, which is the Township of Seguin Library Board monthly financial statements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's a request from the library board that we provide monthly profit and loss statements. As Terry knows that with only receiving annual statements, it makes it very difficult for them to budget through the year. They're in a situation where they are anticipating a deficit. By providing those monthly profit and loss statements, it allows them then to prioritize where they are going to spend whatever dollars they have to try to reduce and come in at a zero line budget. So that's what the request is, and I'd like to put a motion before council to support providing them with monthly profit and loss statements.
I don't know whether we need a motion or just direction to staff to do that.
I'm good with direction to staff, Madam Mayor.
Is direction to staff to provide the library with monthly P&L enough? I think so.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Okay. Oh, okay. Council reports. Gail, thank you for your patience and being there. Do you have anything to report since the last meeting?
Just that the meeting that I went to in gosh, I'm so tired. I can't think. In, where was it? South River with you, Ted?
Amsdale.
Yeah, Amsdale. Anyway, it was a really well done meeting. It was really nice to attend it. I've had lots of, as everybody else has, I assume, lots of letters and phone calls, and well, I haven't had phone calls, but emails and back and forths about the Maplehurst Road this week, and a couple of other things that people wanted to know about the benthic monitoring, which was interesting. There was I had a couple of calls on that, and it just happened to be really good timing because we've done work on that. And other than that, I don't have much else to report. Thank you.
Well, travel safely.
Thank you. We've lost our passports, so we're hopeful that we'll have them tomorrow.
Oh my. We
Yep.
may never see you again. Councillor Collins.
It's really nice here, just so you know.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I was at the Elmsdale conference as well. But my last, I guess, most recent was Thursday last week, where I attended a West Perry Sound firefighter ceremony honoring all new recruits from our area at the Foley Community Center. And it brought back a lot of memories, and I was pleased to be there. Thank you. And of course, I'm dealing with constituents all the time. Yep.
Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a relatively peaceful 2 weeks. Nothing, no meetings, although I have some upcoming, pool and such. So that's it. Nothing.
Councillor Getty.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to give an update on the library as well. Stephanie and the library staff will be at the health fair that will be taking place tomorrow in Rosso, showcasing their services and social programs for seniors. Their summer programming calendar for kids is almost ready, and it should be available soon. And the library board and the CEO are working on a community survey on library services as part of their strategic plan, which they're hoping to launch in late summer. And I will be back asking for council's support to make that successful when that time does arrive. As mentioned, I've had a number of meetings over the last few weeks for the Rosso, the Seguin Health Fair that's going to take place tomorrow at the Rosso Memorial Hall between 2 and 6. Hopefully, as requested, all of you have beaten the bushes and got it out to all your lake associations and contacts. Right now, they're confirmed with 10 different groups that will be coming, providing information on services that are available to seniors and senior support family members. And I'll report back after the success of it tomorrow. The mayor will be there. And I would like to, before closing it off, give a shout out to Valerie and Dominique. Valerie has stepped up and been phenomenal. The relationship between the staff at the nurse practitioner clinic in Rosso and staff has exploded under her cooperation with Ellen Walker at the nursing station. She's made arrangements to have Ellen on the Moose doing an interview and advertising in the local Perry Sound paper. So Valerie, really appreciate all your help and look forward to seeing you there tomorrow. Thank you.
Councillor Bazinski.
Thank you. I also attended the Perry Sound Municipal Association meeting in Amsdale. Very well-run meeting, and had an opportunity to talk with our local member of parliament. On the 26th, I attended the Otter Lake Ratepayer Association annual general meeting with Councillor Ken and our mayor. And they had a variety of things on the agenda, and they talked about Phragmites as well, and that was good. And another thing was that they commissioned a wave study for boat wakes And it's interesting because after the last long weekend, I got a number of calls about wakeboard boats with sea-doos jumping the waves, and seems to be the thing. You get the wakeboard boats and the sea-doos all at once. So between the noise and the waves, there were a number of issues. However, anyway, at 7 p.m. on Wednesday the 5th, they're going to present the results of the wave study. And if anyone is interested, I'd be happy to forward the information so you can attend the Zoom call. Because I think it's important. There will possibly be applications made to with respect to waves and such. I think it's something that is going to be allowed in the future. And then today I attended the flag raising out in the front as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Adams.
Thank you. May the 15th, I attended the Recreation and Culture Committee meeting. May the 17th, I attended the West Prairie Sound Municipal meeting. Oh, the meeting in Elmsdale. May the 23rd, I attended the West Prairie Sound Museum meeting by Zoom. May the 26th, I attended the Otter Lake Ratepayers Association meeting with the mayor and Mario. I had a number of concerns about the condition of the roads in Ward 1 and a few calls, and that was about it. And I apologize. I haven't got my phenomenal report in. I'll certainly have it in for the next one.
Okay. Some of you have already mentioned many of the events I was at. May 15th was the Northern Ontario Women's Caucus meeting. It's growing. The 17th was the meeting in Amsdale that you've mentioned. The 21st, I had a fundraising meeting for the Recreation and Culture Center. And on the 22nd, we had a special meeting of the Airport Commission. And Valerie and I met with Moose FM to set up what's going to be the 6-month blitz on Moose FM starting on June 10th and going till the end of November to raise funds for the rec center. It's a community project. She and I were thinking, who could we test this with? And we thought maybe the first entry should be Seguin Council. How much money can we as a council raise and challenge other councils over the 6 months? So we need it. We may put your name in as the first test. You'll get your own website on the Trellis fundraising. Anything over $25 gets receipted, but you're going to hear 18 ads a week from now till the end of November about the rec center on Moose. And it's a big charity donation by Moose to help us. On the 23rd, I attended with 70 other people the Rosso Caring Community Kickoff. And it was really something. Everybody was contributing. It was really trying to launch how seniors and other people, not just seniors, but people who are shut in and can't travel, how can the caring community care for them? And one of the things that came out loud and clear from the seniors was, don't keep sending us stuff online. We don't have online. So if you go to Rosso, you will see behind the glass at the bulletin board, at the community center, the library, and the waterfront, the women from the Rosso Caring community have put up huge, here's the June calendar, and they're going to do it every month. And they hand wrote it to make it big enough for everybody. So it was quite a meeting. 26th was the Otter Lake Ratepayers, which you fellows have mentioned. Then on the 28th, I was invited to attend the Muskoka Lakes Association board meeting. They have 22 people on their board, but it was very good. They provided me with the questions in advance, and they're in many ways jealous of what's happening in Seguin compared to some of the other townships that they represent and the towns. They have lots of members from Bracebridge, Gravenhurst, Huntsville, Muskoka Lakes Township, Leonard Lake. So they were asking a lot of questions about how we're doing with our bylaw updates and those kinds of things. Yesterday, I was at the Squadron Air Cadet graduation for the McPherson Air Cadets, and it's always quite an event and lots of proud parents and several retired people from the armed forces that have moved here were there with all of their regalia and their medals and everything. The cadets are going to be at the Barrie Air Show next weekend, and one of them, through a lucky draw, is going to get to ride in a snowbird plane for the show. So they're pretty excited about that. Today was the Pride flag, and it'll be up for the month. And then Jason and I have a West Perry Sound Economic Development meeting at 7 tonight to try and get our financial contribution back because we opted out of that. So just a couple dates I want to put on your calendar. The Moose Splits, you'll be hearing about it. Kim Swim is second year. Will be August 25th at 9 Mile Beach in McDougall. It's a fun family event, barbecue, that kind of thing, and kids can play at the beach. And it's a fundraiser. And June 26th, we're cooking for the staff. And 27th. No, 27th. 27th. And we are now cooking for 80 people. A few years ago, we were at 55. So we're growing. That's my report.
Your worship, members of council, just a quick update on some things coming down the pipe or happening around the township. As I go through my list, it seems most of you have spoken about a lot of things, so I just skip along. The township is hosting pickleball here at the Humphrey Community Hall, June 12th, 19th, and 26th from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. This program is free and open to all. Quick reminder that an update that the deadline for the Enriching Tourism in Seguin program has been extended to June 10th. This program provides free hands-on training for local businesses looking to attract more tourists in a sustainable and meaningful way. Anybody interested can visit letsconnectseguin.ca for more information. As you saw earlier today, the township staff continues to work closely with the Georgian Bay Biosphere, and now we're also working on a pollinator planting program that will launch early next week. The team will add milkweed and other pollinator plants to the areas around the landfill at the Humphrey Transfer Station. And last but not least on my list, Seguin's annual free family fun night is coming up on Friday, June the 21st from 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. at the Rosso Waterfront. There'll be a barbecue, live music, magic show, and much, much more for everyone in the family. Please come out and join us. That's it for me, Your Worship.
Sure.
I know that's not on our agenda, but there was a about the rec center. And I happened to read it, and I just happened to see that there is a project risk and contaminated soil, garbage, additional soil to be exported to the site, rock blasting. I mean, this is as of April 30th. So what was being done about the contaminated soil? Like I'm thinking to myself, before we bought the property, would there have been samples taken of the soil and geometric and?
So.
I just want clarification, that's all I
Bit
need.
misleading. The contaminated soil that they found was in the back corner of the property. It was, it's about 6 loads in total. It's non-hazardous, and it was contaminated with basically naturally occurring minerals. So zinc, that kind of thing. That there's no other. There's been no garbage. Well, the garbage, there's some rubble on, that was buried on the site. It was some old pieces of concrete.
So that's not putting the project behind or anything like that.
Not putting it
Still moving. Okay,
behind,
that's all.
it's,
That-
yeah.
That's,
Move
because
it-
when you read project risk, you say, okay, red flag goes up, what's going on?
Well, every time you break surface, on a site,
problem.
you encounter things that you weren't,
Yep, no.
everything else I think
Just
is
clarification.
steaming right along,
We just put a
so,
lot of money into it, that's all.
yep.
Go ahead, Jason.
If I can just add, with any major project like the rec center, we have we have a risk log where we track through our project manager, our architects, our engineering firms are tracking the risks, potential risks, identified risks, and putting in place mitigation measures. So it's not uncommon to see the identification of risks. There's always risks in major projects. In this case, it's being managed and there's no major delays or implications associated with it.
Yeah, no, I was just surprised to see it. So everybody's being very transparent on this particular project, so it's good to know.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it was the only item that hit the newspaper. There was some good there was good news in the meeting too, but that was the only thing that the newspaper picked up, so. I now have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the board and committee minutes and agendas and the correspondence as presented on the agenda and addendum for the June 3rd meeting of council. Could I have a mover? Greg and Mario. And Gail. All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby proceed to a closed meeting at 5:10 PM in order to address matters pertaining to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before the administrative tribunals. And that refers to the Perry Sound Area Municipal Airport Runway Project and Seguin versus Exler. I have a mover to take us into closed. Ken? Greg. Do you need a break? Okay. All in favor of this guy? Thank you. Okay. Okay, sorry. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby rise from the closed session and declare the regular meeting reconvened at 6 PM. Can I have a mover, please? Hands go up quickly. All in favor? It's carried. And I have a motion that bylaw number 2024-059, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of meetings of council, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a mover, Ted? And Fellner, all in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn this regular meeting of council at 6:01 PM to meet again on Monday, June 17th, or at the call of the mayor. Mario. All in favor? And just so you folks know, Jason and I are in Calgary from Thursday to Monday.